I have Manan with me, who recently scored a 740. You can see the date, 27th of January, and especially Quant 50 and Verbal 41. Both of them are pretty respectable scores. I think with Quant 50, Verbal 41, some of my students have also received 760, Manan. You might be knowing that. So it's a
Yeah,
little strange that the GMAT has this is a 760 equivalent, but it's a 740 for you. So I'd
yeah.
like you to take us through the preparation and what materials you studied, what worked for you, what were your
Hmm.
challenge areas, and how we went about the exam also, and were there any surprises? Like the whole thing that I generally.
Understood, understood. Okay. So I'll start with quants.
Mhm,
Uh, I am from finance background, but I'll be very honest. I had a lot of challenges in quants in the beginning,
mhm,
especially starting from geometry to coordinate geometry and permutation combination.
mhm,
Uh, I think one thing that really helped me was that from the very beginning, I
mhm,
was doing all the difficult questions. So what
mhm.
happened was it broke any sort of overconfidence or ego I could have, and that
Okay.
really helped because after that I did all the basics, everything as you told,
Mhm.
and that was really beneficial because then I became open to learning again. and
Right, right.
and I think means to whoever is present here, I would honestly suggest that do all the basic videos. No matter you know the concept or not, you always learn something. And I found that I was able to answer two questions out of 31 in my final GMAT exam only only because of something I learned in the basic videos. So
Wow. Mhm. That's great. That's great.
yeah, second thing I would say is that when it comes to quants, I think in the book, sir initially mentions only to do 700 plus question. And
Right.
that I think is really important because it prevents from any false sense of confidence. And uh, that is essential because when you will do some sort of questions, let's say
Mhm,
actual GMAT questions, they are quite simple. But
mhm,
as the difficulty level increases, you will realize that after doing the variety of questions that Sir provides,
mhm.
I don't think anything remains not that is uncovered. Um,
Right.
and third thing I would say is that be very systematic about time. I mean, from the very beginning, always keep tab of time. And in questions where you are taking specifically more than 2 minutes, one thing that really helped me was going to GMAT Club, looking for that question, and looking at all the solutions provided. Because as Sir always says, there is always a way of doing the question in 30 seconds.
Right.
So always try to find a shortcut of doing the question because I think in GMAT, getting right means nothing unless it's not within the time. So
Absolutely. Very well said, Manan. I mean, this is
uh,
something that comes once the classes are over, but I
yeah,
think this
and
is.
I think, sir, that was really important because I remember that even in actual exam, you have to do the first 10-15 question within 90 seconds
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the time saved will be required for rest of the questions. And initially, if anyone thinks that okay, I'm doing the question in 2 minutes, I'll be able to manage in the end, it becomes quite difficult.
Right.
So I think that was really important. Apart from that, I'll now coming to verbal.
Mm,
I would say that RC octave is something that becomes so important that I remember after doing 50-60 passages initially, it
mm,
became part of my subconscious. Like as I was reading the passage,
mhm.
the first thing that was popping in my mind was, okay, is it a positive or a negative tone? Is it a
Mhm.
balance or what type of
Neutral.
passage it is?
Yeah, yeah.
And creating that gist is very important because as soon as you have a question which is on main idea or something,
Mm,
you can really answer it very quickly. Second thing I would say is that at least for me, science passages were difficult.
mm,
So best technique that worked for me was elimination and pointing finger on the right answer.
right,
I
right.
would honestly suggest not to use your muscle memory. Means I used to make this mistake initially where I used to think that okay, I have read the passage, I understand, I'll be able to mark. No, always pinpoint because somewhere I believe that they know the type of mentality we have, and they always try to use it against
I'll
us.
just add one thing, Manan, here, because
Yeah,
as a student, I've said this before in many seminars of mine. I had the same problem. I never went back to the passage hoping that I just read it and I'm anyway good at knowledge and reading. So there's no need to go back and refer back. But I really have to tell that so many times I went wrong just because of not verifying. So I think you
absolutely, sir.
seconded that thing. So very nice. Yes. Right.
Sir, another thing I'll give it a lot of importance is doing LSAT passages.
Right.
Uh, I mean, I'll be very honest. Some passages can be really, really long, and I believe that LSAT passages are simply amazing. I remember there are 60 tests, four
Mm,
passages, 240 passages, and I did all of them. And
mm.
after doing 240 passages, my fear of long passages just went away. I remember during my actual exam, I had two passages which had 6 paragraphs, and
Okay. Mm.
for not even a second I panicked, and that was only because of doing LSAT passages. So
So that was for reading comprehension. Really nice.
sir, another thing I found a
Yeah.
bit strange in my exam was out of the four passages, I had only one question in one passage about the main idea
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
that's true.
passage.
The trend is more and more towards
Yes,
inference questions. So yes,
yeah, and I think as the questions move towards inference, you that using Octave becomes really, really important. And
because elimination, if you don't do verification and elimination,
yeah,
this is very difficult. Yes.
and so second thing is that your KTW and awareness videos
Right.
really helped me, because what it did is it gave me a general idea and perspective about everything. So
Hmm.
when I was doing any type of passage, it
Hmm.
was not completely alien stuff.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
I think that was really
There's
helpful.
some sense
Uh,
of comfort does build
yes,
around passages.
definitely. Like for example, specifically when it comes to something like earthquake or something, doing that basic concepts before makes things really easy.
Right.
Uh, so coming to CR, honestly,
Mm.
I didn't have much of a issue.
Hmm. Hello.
I I I only did CR based on elimination and negation for assumption
Hmm.
question. And I think I was fine. The techniques you told were honestly more than enough. One thing I would specifically say is that in the exam I got two questions only on conditional reasoning, and
Hmm.
yours and you have a separate video and a PDF which
Hmm.
only focuses on conditional reasoning, and that helped me a lot because I remember I made a very simple arrow chart, and
Hmm.
I was able to do both questions in less than 80-90 seconds.
Wow,
uh,
that's great to hear.
y-
So,
yeah, and I think conditional reasoning can become as confusing as one wants it to be, and doing by the arrow technique you teach in that video class really helped me,
mm,
like because what I've realized is that in conditional reasoning, one of the answers is always a contrapositive.
right.
So, so it was very fast to eliminate.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, the biggest challenge was sentence correction, and I think you would have heard this thousands of times.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'll say one thing that helped me the most was the SCPPT. I
Hmm.
would have done it like 5-6 times, and every time I learned something new.
Right.
And I would say that do the PPTs again and again as thoroughly as possible,
Hmm.
because it because there are so many different types of concepts, from use of when, which, subjunctive pronouns, all of that, that everyone tends to forget something or the other. And
Right.
doing the video PPTs again and again really helps. Second, I would say is that you have this PDF of 50 sentences
Yeah.
and 100 questions.
Right.
That is superb in a sense that it covers the whole breadth of questions.
Right.
And I would say that everyone should spend a lot of time practicing all, going through all the idioms and preferences, because
Hmm.
when you have time crunch in exam, sometimes preferences really help. I got a question where based on due to because of,
Hmm.
and instead of rather than, I was able to eliminate four options and move on when I had crunch time.
Right.
So
Superb.
so something like that really helps. Another thing I would say is that everyone should definitely do the mega revision PDF, that 700 plus pages
Yeah.
PDF. That is really helpful because first of all in SC you break all the questions based on topic,
Right.
and in CR you have this 100 question
Right.
test.
Very challenging set. Yes. Yes.
And yeah, and because I think most of them are LSAT questions,
Yeah.
and I think even RC passages are long and tough,
Mm-hmm.
and that really helped me improve my focus and concentration because I think I was doing that questions rapidly one after one,
Mm-hmm.
and it brought me in such a concentration mode that during exam, not even for a second I felt like my concentration is breaking or something.
Right. S- And
Yeah.
also tell us about the mocks, etc., that you would have done and the real exam. You told two
Hmm.
passages were pretty long for you, but was there anything unusual apart from
Yeah.
that? One by one, tell me.
Yeah. So, sir, first of all, I did lot of sectional mocks from your
Portal. Yeah.
portal.
Yeah.
I found sectional mocks really helpful. Number one, see, doing questions is okay, but when you are doing questions under a countdown, that
Mm-hmm.
time stress, that is the real test. Uh, and I think second thing is that especially verbal, the questions are quite challenging. So
Right.
so my thing was that if I'm able to finish the whole thing in 65 minutes here, exams will be a bit easier. And
Mm.
that was true because I think apart from one section mock I gave, I was able to finish most of them, and I was getting like 6, 7 wrong.
Mm.
Um, so and I think what sectional mock did was it gave me a very good sense of time management.
Mm.
Like I had created my time strategy from the beginning, and during exam, I had no problem in time management in any of the section. I had around 1 minute left in quants and around 40 seconds left in verbal.
Okay,
Uh,
that's great. That's great to
yeah.
hear.
Now, sir,
And
coming down to exam,
mhm,
I would say that first, this is something that I learned from my experience, that be mentally prepared to spend few more seconds on each question. What I mean by this is that look, when we are doing something at home, we are in our comfort zone. But when we are
mhm,
doing an exam, we don't want the initial questions to go wrong. So even though the questions are simple, we might be spending few more seconds. So let's say I'm doing a question in 20 seconds at home, I might be spending 25, 30 seconds just to verify the answer. So
yeah,
my point is, be mentally ready that such time will go, and do your pacing accordingly.
yeah.
Uh, I think apart from one or two questions, nothing was very unusual in quants. One thing I would honestly say is that I saw a lot of problem solving questions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, and I mean, what was happening is there were few questions where questions was not very difficult,
Mm,
but it was quite lengthy in terms of calculation and decimals.
mm-hmm.
But I would say there choosing smart answers really helps sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Approximation
Yeah,
techniques, etc.
yeah, approximation really helps. Second
Right.
thing I would say is that this is something you mentioned in one of your classes also. Don't pick the pen immediately when you see a question.
Mm-hmm.
Spend 15-20 seconds trying to simplify the question in our own head. And that really helped because there were so many questions where I prevented wasting any time writing or doing anything. And I think in exam there were close to 12 questions which I did without even picking the pen.
That's fabulous to know, Manan. Yes,
Yeah,
that's.
yeah, yeah. I think that is a way of that you should practice while doing solving questions, like especially when it comes to inequalities or geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than making a diagram, just visualizing or
Mm.
looking at screen and trying to simplify really helps. Because I think in inequality, it has become a tendency for me to, simplify the question as much as possible in my head
Mm.
and then solving. That makes it very easy when it comes to data sufficiency, especially.
Right, right, right.
One thing I have to tell, so I'll never forget the question in my life because it was the 25th question, and I got a very, very simple question based on a plus b whole square.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shocked me because, we are always told that as you do well, questions become harder. So first thing that came in my mind was, okay, am I doing so badly that I'm getting such a simple question? And second thing, what was going on in my mind is there a trap? And believe me, I spent 90 seconds. I had time, so there was no worry there, but I spent 90 seconds only to find a trap. And there was no trap. So, be ready for such mental games.
Yeah.
They
This could have
that
been an experimental question, but you never
maybe,
know.
yeah. So it was that way. I think so verbal was pretty fine. As I said, I had made a very simple time strategy and I stick to
Mm.
it. And as I said, I had long RC passages, but after doing LSAT, believe me, nothing seemed challenging in RC. Like nothing does. So I think it was overall manageable. No
Yeah.
issues per se.
Superb, and your score is very competitive. I said we had 50-41, someone scoring 760 also, so it's a little surprising how the
Yeah,
GMATs, and it I've seen 740 also, 750, 760, all three at the same
yeah,
breakup level. But great to know. And you did watch. I remember you have shared your Know the World experience before also with
yeah.
me.
Yeah, I think I did know the world back then. I mean, basically, I started my journey in at the end of 2020, but then in between I gave my CFA exam and all, so it got delayed and all. But this time I had made a plan that I want to get it done anyhow. So
Yeah,
I think KTW and awareness really helps.
right, right.
Yeah.
So great, Manan, and thanks for your time. And
Thank you
really
so much, sir.
keep up the good work. And I think contact my colleague Autry. He will guide you further with respect to
Sure,
how
sir.
you want to plan your next parts journey. Keep in
Sure,
touch
sir.
then. Thank you. Right.
Thank you
Bye
so much,
bye.
sir. Yes,
Bye
bye.
bye.